We haven't had a Beis Hamikdash for thousands of years, which means that we haven't really had an identity for thousands of years. Because just like an individual, their home is their base, their home is their station, their home is what gives them power. And if something's not right in the home, then the nefesh doesn't feel like it has an identity. It doesn't feel like it has a place in this world. So the same way, when Klal Yisrael has a Beis Hamikdash, it indicates that they have the wisdom, they have their place, which makes their life meaningful, which gives them purpose, which gives their nefesh a base, a place that gives it safety, a place that gives it reason and purpose and drive. And when that gets destroyed, then the spirit cannot find rest. The spirit cannot find comfort in this experience if it doesn't have purpose, if it doesn't understand, if it can't participate in a meaningful way in what's taking place in front of it. That's the nature of the spirit. Many have tried through different distractions, different forms of entertainment, different pleasures, to disregard this requirement, to disregard our natural need for purpose. And the results always end up in the same place. No amount of distraction will allow the spirit to feel comfortable in the body if it cannot find purpose, if it cannot find meaning. And this is something that was known in the ancient world. This is something that was known when people were still attached to their nature, when people were still attached to their hearts. But this is something that has been forgotten since people started being distracted by matter, started being distracted by their senses, started being distracted by the collective impressions that we leave on each other. That's all they are, impressions of the mind. The people that you know are not people. They're just an impression that you have in your mind about what you think they might be saying or not saying, or they might be feeling or not feeling. None of them true, none of them real, none of them accurate. And so when we invest identity, we invest meaning, we invest our livelihood, our purpose in these things, then we lose sight of reality, we lose sight of life. We get caught up in things that are not healthy for our spirit, in things that cause the spirit to feel even more caged, even more uncomfortable. And so therefore, even though it's been 2,000 years, we still fast, we still celebrate our misery, because we realize that the suffering from the event, the suffering from the reality, is much deeper, is much more real than whatever suffering we're going to inflict on ourselves today. We commemorate that we don't really have access to the joy of life. Life is not really available to us because we don't understand the purpose. We can't engage our spirit in life fully if we don't understand what is the goal, where are we headed, what are we trying to accomplish. And so now we're starting the 3 weeks. Now we're starting a period of sadness. It's sadness because of what's taking place today. It's not sadness because of an event that took place in history. It's sadness because, due to that event, the experience that we have today is not what it should be, is not based on the standards to which our body and our spirit were designed. And so therefore, remembering our pain, remembering our suffering, gives us purpose. It gives us hope. It gives us the realization that this way of life, this way of experiencing reality, is not going to continue for long. At some point, humanity will realize its true nature. The intelligence will ultimately overcome the imagination, and humanity will return to its former glory and beyond, to places that have never been explored, to levels of joy that have not been experienced by any human being in history, or any creature for that matter. And so, the sadness is not sad. Reality is sad. The sadness is hope. The sadness is purpose. The sadness is the reason why we allow ourselves to continue to suffer, because we know that something else is the purpose, something else is to come. And this is why right after Tisha B'Av we have Chamishasei B'Av. The Mishnah says, Lo hoyu yomim tovim liYisrael, they didn't have happy days in Klal Yisrael like Chamishasei B'Av and Yom Kippurim. Those were the two happiest days of the year. And so we see how this sadness, this suffering, this remembering suffering, doesn't lead to depression. It doesn't lead to an open-ended cry. It leads to a return to hope, a return to joy, a return to attempting to realize a deeper reality where that suffering no longer has to exist, where that suffering will no longer be necessary. And so, everything that we experience is to motivate us, is to teach us, is to guide us on our path to realizing our nature, on our path to awakening, on our path to realizing that all the troubles that we are experiencing, we are also creating, we are also interpreting, we are also making them as real as we decide that they are. Many people have had different troubles, and in their mind and their experience, it didn't even appear, it didn't even exist, it wasn't even real, because of how they chose to see reality, because of how they chose to interact with life, because of how they understood the experience of what it means to have a body. And so when they allow themselves to see life from the perspective of the truth, the circumstances in life became much less meaningful. And this is how we can survive exile. This is how we can survive suffering. This is why we are tied to these ancient events. It's not because those ancient events need our mercy, they need our tears. We are the ones that need our mercy. We are the ones that need our tears. We are the ones that went to exile. We are the ones that are in exile. Everything that we're crying about is right here, is right now. Because we realize that this is not real. We realize that we've gotten lost in our own imagination, and therefore we are saying and doing things that we really have no business saying, and we don't even want to say them. And this is because we've lost the purpose, we've lost the meaning. We're after different things. We fight and compete over different things that are completely meaningless, that have no purpose other than in our own imagination. And so this is an opportunity to awaken. This is an opportunity to return. This is why we have these times. So we want to express certain things about ourselves that are real, that are what guide our destiny, what guide our purpose. And the year has been set up by the ancient wisdom to be how nature set it up to correlate with the day and the night. So the day is the summer and the night is the winter. And so we see, for example, the time of Mincha when there's Midas Hadin, right? Yitzchak creates Mincha, and that represents Rosh Hashanah when it starts becoming cold, when we're going towards the winter. And then in the morning we have Shachris, which is Boker D'Avram, represents the Midas HaChesed, and that's when we have Pesach, which represents the Midas HaChesed, when the summer starts. And like that, the entire year correlates to 24 hours. And that's nature all the time. Nature has these beautiful formulas and sequences that it's constantly recreating, that it's constantly using in order to manifest reality. So that the intelligence that we are can start seeing the wisdom of the Creator, can start understanding how deep goes all the different layers, all the different dimensions that interact together to create this wonderful experience that we're having right now. And so now is the time where we're starting to turn from the middle of the day and we're going towards the evening. We're going towards Rosh Hashanah, we're going towards the Midas Hadin. And so therefore, we cry, therefore we feel the fear, the pain, the loss of what took place in these times and what takes place inside of us. Because they all correlate to each other. They're all the same reality. They're all mirroring the spirit to see itself from different angles, from different perspectives, so that it can become aware, so that it can become conscious of itself. And these are the cycles of life, a day after a day, a month after a month, a year after a year. That's how the spirit evolves. That's how the spirit becomes more and more aware, more and more intelligent, more and more conscious, more and more real. And so this is a time where we allow ourselves to realize that we as human beings deserve better. This is not okay. What's happening here is not okay. How do we know it's not okay? Because we cry about it. 3 weeks out of the year we cry how not okay this is. We deserve better. This is not the way it should have been at all. This is not right. And we're going to do whatever is in our power to make it right, to make it better. This is our responsibility. This is why we're here. We have no other purpose. So may we all be zocheh to use this time properly, to see more deeply, to recognize what it is we can do to contribute, to make this world better, to bring it back to its former glory, so humanity can have a place. HaKadosh Baruch Hu can have his home back. May it happen this year so we can already rejoice in the Binyan Beis HaMikdash B'mehera B'yameinu. What does it mean to return to reality? Reality is quiet, silence. Reality is when you're experiencing yourself without any additions, without any clothing, without any dress that's covering you from yourself. So as soon as you have a thought, you're leaving that reality, you're going into an imagined reality, you're going into a world of thought. That world of thought is not real, that world of thought you made up. So when we say come back to reality, it simply means return from thinking that your thoughts are real, because they're not, and wake up to reality. Are you using intelligence in place of neshama or chachma? So intelligence is everything. Intelligence is neshama, the keser, if it's there, the chachma, the bina, and the das. All that is pure intelligence. Then the midos, the attributes, are also intelligence, but they're already a more gross level of intelligence where they're already interacting with the physical, they're already animating matter. So the intelligence that is in the moichin, in the chachma, bina, and das, is completely abstract. It doesn't live inside the body per se, even though the body is allowing it to perceive. But the emotions are animating the organs, animating the body, changing the hormones. So they're the more physical level of intelligence. So when I say intelligence, I'm talking about all intelligence, because to know how to differentiate these things is already a much deeper level. So intelligence in general just means that there must be something that's causing a piece of meat to animate. And whatever that is intelligence, regardless of the different ways of quantifying that, where we're talking about the neshama, the spiritual force, or the chachma, which is already more the software that's running within the force. But all that requires much more development before we can get into those details. Regarding the Rosh Hashanah, someone they mentioned to me that if we hadn't sinned, the golden calf would be Rosh Hashanah. That's true. Then what today is truly has the deeper reality of what we lost. So I'm saying within this distance, I'm really here just, yeah. So I've never heard this, that Rosh Hashanah would be a different day if not for the golden calf, but certainly we wouldn't have to cry 3 weeks if we wouldn't have done the golden calf, because the golden calf was going from wisdom to superstition, losing access to the ultimate reality. So everything that we suffer is because of that. There cannot be a suffering that a person goes through from that moment forward that is not related to the fact that we lost track of reality. So therefore it says every punishment will also be a punishment for the golden calf, because the golden calf is the beginning. Once we lose track of reality, it just gets worse and worse because we don't have a compass. We don't know which way is up anymore. This Shabbos is correlated to Keser. We discuss this to what we're doing here in real time. I don't know. This Shabbos is correlated to Keser probably because we have 3 weeks of that we're going to have an haftarah related to punishment, and then we're going to have 7 weeks that we're going to have an haftarah related to the nechama, related to the appeasement that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to bring to Klal Yisrael after they're done suffering. And so this, as the first week, is the first of the 3 weeks of the Moichin, is the first of the 3 weeks of the Pironius. And this is a very interesting concept to realize, that usually the Moichin, the intelligence, is the higher level, is the deeper level from the 7 midas that come from it. 7 midas that come out of the intelligence are more gross, are more physical, are more interactive with the body. And so here we look at the 3 first ones, the Moichin, which usually should be more kind, should be more close to the source. These 3 are 3 of punishment. And then the 7, the midos, which are usually more physical, which should usually be more din, should usually be more stringent, they happen to be the ones that are giving nechama, that are giving appeasement. And what that teaches us is that the real purpose of the Piranis, the real purpose of suffering, is that it should bring to appeasement. It's to bring us together, us with the Creator. So we were so distant, we were so confused, that we couldn't return without the suffering. The suffering is the tool that brings us back. The suffering is the tool that returns us. Like it says in the Pasuk, B'bchi yavoi, with crying they will come, Ebetachnunim oivilem, I will guide them by them begging. They will be begging for mercy, and that will guide them towards themselves. That will guide them back to reality, because they'll realize the folly of their ways. They'll realize that their way doesn't have any good manifestation. It doesn't serve any purpose. And so therefore the punishment, the suffering, is the higher level of kindness. It's the deeper kindness. What comes out of it, what comes out on the physical level, that's the appeasement that comes after. And that's the goal, that's the reason. So when we see suffering, it's not good that we need to suffer. It shows that we were very distant from the root. It shows that we've lost our way so far that this is the only language we understand. But at the end of the day, if this is the language that's necessary, then let's have this language, but let's return home. We'll return home with any language, because it's better to be home and to have what was really designed for us than to have our fake peace where we don't really find our true nature, where we don't really know what we were created to do, where we don't really have purpose. So if the only way home is through suffering, then that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu will do. That's the depth of His kindness. That's the depth of His desire to have us experience right, is that within the formula that creates life, it's already programmed that if we go away, if we start neglecting our divinity, neglecting the holiness of this experience, it will start becoming a hassle, and then it will become suffering, and then it will become hell. All to make us return, all to make us realize the importance of what's taking place, so that we get it right. So this week is the first week of the Piranius, which is the Keser, which is the beginning desire to cause something harmful to happen, because ultimately that's how we're going to return to good. That's how the world is going to be rectified. That's how all the evil that's in the heart of the people, all these bad spirits that are between people, people will be willing to give it up in order to stop suffering. As long as they're not suffering, they're at each other's throats. They start suffering, they say, I'll give up anything, just let me stop suffering. And that's how all the evil spirits are going to die. So, Bayom Ha'u Yeh Hashem Echad Shmo Echad. May it happen soon.